So have you combined multiple lithium iron phosphate batteries together that have a different rated capacity? So I have this second battery here that I wanted to be able to parallel with this one, and it's slightly smaller in capacity. So I added this extra box here. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Hey, in this video I'm going to give you a follow-up or an update on this DIY emergency battery backup system that I installed about 6 months ago. We've had several power outages during the last 6 months. This system's been running 24/7 since July, and I've made some changes to the system that I want to walk you through and get your feedback on, see what you think about it. Basically, the brains of the system is the SunGoldPower 10 kilowatt split phase inverter. So this is a hybrid inverter. It's got solar inputs. I have 1700 watts up here of solar panels, but right now it's winter, it's gray, and it's cloudy and dark. So we don't really have any usable solar coming in at the moment, but in the summertime we do, so it helps offset the power consumption. We've got a battery here, and this is a 14 kilowatt, a 48 volt lithium iron phosphate battery. It's got these nice blade cells in here. It's a great battery, but it's a bit older. I've had it for several years, purchased it a long time ago. One of the things is that it doesn't have BMS communication built in, so I don't have it connected here to the inverter so that I can see an accurate stated charge in through the inverter app that I can monitor remotely. So I'll talk about that. The critical circuits that this system is powering are controlled over here through this set of transfer switches that I originally used for a generator setup when that was my primary backup source of power. So I'll show you that real quick. Now, what I really like about this emergency transfer switch panel over, say, a traditional sub panel for a generator is that I don't have to disconnect from grid power in order to use it, because each of these circuits that I've dedicated to this has its own breaker, and I can manually switch them between grid and backup power without touching the rest of the system. So I could have some of these, say, that are running from the inverter and the battery backup, and I can have some of these that I just want to run those from the grid. So I have that choice to decide what I want to do with those circuits. And I installed these little digital meters so it keeps track of my ongoing consumption and draw from each side of the panel here. So yeah, this has been something I've been using for many years when I had a generator, and I just upgraded to this 50 amp version, and instead of a plug that goes to a generator, I have that going to the inverter instead. So the inverter is essentially taking in grid power. I've got a little bit of solar power coming in when it's available, and we've got battery power going through the inverter that it can convert to split phase 240 volts, so two legs of 120 volt AC. And I have lots of programming options here in the inverter that if you're interested, go check out the original video I made about this setup, and you'll get an idea of what we're doing here. But the way that I have it set up primarily is that when solar power is available, so when solar's coming in and it hits a certain voltage level, then I have it set up so it automatically switches over to use battery and solar power, and that powers a lot of these loads. And when that solar power kicks off at night, or for example in the middle of the day when there's just not enough solar coming in, then it switches to grid pass-through mode. Now in this grid pass-through mode, I have it set up to recharge the batteries if they need it, and prepare them for a power outage. So So it pulls them back up when it's in grid pass-through, and it powers all of the loads from grid power now instead of backup battery power. So it's a pretty versatile system, and I've really not had to change anything since I set it up like 6 months ago. It just runs and just switches back and forth as needed. Like I said, we've had some power outages, sometimes for like an entire day or 24-hour period, even longer in some cases. And when it's happened, we haven't even noticed. All right, let me give you just a quick demonstration of what happens when the power goes out. Because right now I'm in grid pass-through mode. I can see here there's no solar coming in. And yeah, I'll just kill the grid power, and it's gonna automatically just switch over to battery backup. So I'm just gonna hit this breaker over here, switch it off. Okay. Now I can see here on the display that now I've got battery power going into the inverter, and that's powering all my loads at the moment. Nothing's really changed on the transfer switch panel, and now I have everything being powered from my battery backup. Now if I had some solar coming in at the moment, I would also be bringing in that solar, and it would also be contributing to power these loads and charging the battery. Now all that stuff I said is programmable through here. So that's what happens, and then when the power comes back, breaker again, hear the beep, and then it switched back to this grid pass-through mode. And you can hear the fans ramping up here. It's starting to just recharge the batteries a little bit again. So, you know, when this occurs, you know, during a power outage, it's just seamless, and it just works. Now, even though this big old 14 kilowatt battery here is going to be able to power everything for, you know, a long time, eventually, if there's an extended power outage, eventually it is going to get depleted without some kind of recharging. And let's just say, like if it's wintertime, I have to run, you know, maybe more heaters, and we're not getting any solar coming in. So I wanted a way to add additional battery capacity to the system, and a better way to recharge the batteries that are connected. So I added this extra box here to be able to combine the battery power from this guy with additional batteries and a charging source. You can see right here it has a big old disconnect on it too, which is one thing I didn't have, because I wanted to be able to have one switch that I could kill all incoming battery power, and primarily for maintenance and safety reasons if I needed to just disconnect all the batteries, if I have multiple batteries now connected. So I have this second battery here that I wanted to be able to parallel with this one, and it's slightly smaller in capacity, but it's a 48 volt, 11 kilowatt battery. This is 14, and it's also lithium iron phosphate battery. So I wanted to be able to combine them, and that happens through here. So let me crack this open. I'll show you what's inside. So let's look at what we have here. We got two primary things here. One of them is we have a negative bus bar here and a positive bus bar. So all of our battery terminals, most of them are connected through these two bus bars. And if we look at the output, starting with the output, we've got our positive battery output coming from this positive bus bar, and we've got the negative output coming from this shunt here, which you might recognize this. This is a Victron smart shunt. So that's what I have set up here to monitor the state of charge and, you know, track historical stuff for whatever battery charging and discharging is passing through this box. Everything goes through the shunt. So we take a quick look at this, I could take these off here, give us a better look at it. These are pretty large bus bars. So the primary battery, we have the positive and negative coming in here, and the negative goes to this bus bar, positive goes to this bus bar. And the secondary battery, same thing. The negative goes to this negative bus bar, positive goes to the positive bus bar. I've tried my best to keep the cable lengths as close to each other so that it's not necessarily creating an excessive amount of resistance, which would maybe cause it to favor one battery over the other. So yeah, everything goes into the bus bars, and then the output, the negative output here, I have this copper bus bar tied to this this disconnect, which goes to another bus bar connected to this shunt, and then out. The rest of this stuff, these small little wires here, are to power the shunt, and I have a little LED here so I know when it's on. It's just a little green light, and yeah, I just have a place to plug in 12 volt accessories to this. One more thing that I have connected to it is a GX device. I have this old GX device at the top here that's got a busted screen, but I can connect the shunt to it, and then that allows me to set up the GX device so that I can monitor everything remotely through the internet. So that's been working pretty well too. I could just watch it through my VRM portal online, and I can just keep track of what everything's doing. Now this extra input that's coming in here through this Anderson plug, right now it's disconnected. I just have some hot glue, just made a little cap here for this, but it's also attached to the positive and negative of this whole setup. So what this is for is to allow me to plug in an auxiliary charging source so that I could use it to recharge the batteries through here, even if this is turned off and the batteries are isolated from the inverter. Now since this battery here, it has an older style BMS, but it works just fine. The only thing is it just does not have BMS communication. So when I set it up through this inverter, there's no communication cable, nowhere to plug it in. So I have to use a user programmable charge profile that I just set up here on the inverter. It's just like user defined, and then I could just set the charge voltages and float voltages, everything manually. So I think I have it set to 57.6 right now for a charge voltage, and it's floating I think at 55. I think I have it written down here. Yeah, so it has a float voltage right now of 55.2. That seems to be working just fine. And since I have both of these batteries now connected in parallel, I'm just using that same user-defined profile to manage both batteries, and it seems to be working just fine. Now I should also point out that this second battery here does have BMS communication capability. I would normally set that to the pylon tech setting for that BMS, and I can communicate with this, but I'm not using it. So it's just parallel through here, and I'm just using that user-defined setting for everything. It fairly equally distributes the load across both batteries, or the charge across both batteries, and it works just fine. If we look at the cell voltages here, we can see that it's really well balanced. So it's like 3.5 volts evenly all down the row here for all 16 cells. Now if we look at this second battery here, you can see this, but yeah, go into the settings here. We can see that there's nothing being drawn from it right now, nothing going in and out because it's fully charged. But if we go down to the cell voltages, we can see that everything's pretty well balanced, like 1 through 4, 3.4 volts, and pretty consistent all the way down to 16. There's 16 cells in here. So yeah, they're all like 3.4, maybe one 3.39 something. Now what I also like is that with this setup, it gives me more options for which batteries I want to use. For example, if I just want to run from this larger battery, I can just take this one completely offline, and it doesn't impact the system at all, even if I'm running from batteries. So what I could do is just let this one sit fully charged all the time, and if, for example, this one runs low, gets depleted, I can just switch it over to this one without any trouble, and then figure out what I want to do to recharge this. Or I can do the opposite. I can turn this one off and then turn this one back on. So it just gives me some flexibility with how I manage these batteries. Now, in the event of an extended power outage, the grid's not coming back for several days or a week or a month, who knows, these batteries are going to start to get depleted, and we want to just keep powered up. So I need to have a way to recharge them. And I do keep a backup generator still on hand. I still have the generator that I've always had. And I also have a smaller one that might actually work better for how I would recharge these batteries. So I picked up this this battery charger. This is from Lithium. It's a 48 volt battery charger. It's going to charge at 58.4 volts and 30 amps. So it's a 30 amp battery charger. So if this were cranking out 30 amps at 58 volts, that's roughly like 1750 or so watts. So you could power that from, say, a small 2000 watt generator, as opposed to this other 7500 watt gas generator. A smaller one that you could run for 8 hours or more on a gallon of gas is probably going to be the better bet for recharging this. So the way this is hooked up is that it's just mounted here, and the cables here go through this Anderson plug here, and what I can do is just plug that right into this this panel as another input. So I'm going to go ahead and hook it up. So right now it's plugged in, and it's going right to that bus bar, and I can just fire it up. See, with the charger running, it's dropping now. It was at 30 amps, and since it's pretty much fully charged, it's dropping down to, probably going to go down to 0. Now the output of the charger connect to this Anderson plug, which is wired in to the system here, and on the positive side I have a terminal fuse installed, and I believe this is just like a 40 amp terminal fuse, since the charger is at 30 amps, so I thought I'd just put a fuse there to protect that. So that's sitting there on that input, and then when I'm not using it, right now it's off, I can just disconnect it, and then I created this little plug to go over and just kind of protect that input there. So it works pretty well. So have you combined multiple lithium iron phosphate batteries together that have a different rated capacity in a off-grid setup, and how does that work for you? I think it's working fine for me. I know back in the lead acid days, it was kind of a big no-no. You don't combine dissimilar batteries. You're not going to get good results. But with the embedded BMS inside this battery, these other batteries, and the similar charge profiles, it seems to be okay. It seems to be working fine for me. But let me know what your experiences have been, and let me know what you think of this setup and the changes that I've made. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But yeah, I hope you got something out of this. I really appreciate you watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Take it easy. It's about the right size. Do a little chamfer on that side. All right, see if this works. Oh, look at that. That lines up just right. So now I can slides right in there. Nice. On, off. Perfect.